Actually I'm really rich author, Nanfan Bazi copy. Wen Li's grandfather was a literary master who lived in the mountains for decades in order to create. Wen Li lived in the mountains with her grandparents since she was a child. After Wen Li went to school, she found out that there was only one black and white TV at home and all the classmates had color TVs. So Xiao Wenli knew precociously that she was born in poverty and had to work hard. But gradually Wen Li discovered something was wrong. Wen Li carefully called Grandpa. Grandpa, what do the 2 keys you and Dad gave me when I was admitted to university mean? Grandpa snorted and said, I gave you a courtyard house, and your father gave you a building. Wen Li's heart trembled. What about the document my father asked me to sign the other day? Grandpa snorted coldly, how do I know, but your dad recently bought a gem mine. Wen Li asked cautiously, Grandpa, is our family really poor? Grandpa was so angry that he scolded the idiot. After Wen Li and Gao Ling's Hua, who are not close to men and women, got together in the school grass weekly examination, the whole school was a sensation. Zhou Cao is the eldest young master from a wealthy family, while Wen Li is a poor boy in the mountains. The family is not right. Wen Li has become a scheming girl who wants to marry into a wealthy family. Until someone secretly took a video of the two. In the video, Zhou Cao actually took the initiative to block Wen Li in an unoccupied corner, playing with Wen Li's long hair. It is said that this set of jewels worth millions of dollars on your body is a roadside flower. 20 Did you get it from the block? Wen Li smiled and said, probably the owner of the stall is my dad. But this little brother. Wen Li raised Zhou Cao's chin and winked like silk, how do you sell such $1 million beauty? Known as hell level difficulty, Gao Ling's Hua Zhou Cao, who could not be chased by anyone, was almost obsessed. Wen Li smiled and avoided, 10 yuan is a bit expensive, right? Zhou Caoan gritted his teeth and kissed, I'll post 10 yuan. The whole school was shocked. Female protagonist rich and generation double arrow crush. Sweet earth flavor Mary Soleil be careful content tags, urban love inspirational life sweet text search keywords, protagonist, Wen Li supporting role, Zhou Cao others, one sentence introduction, really endless intention, distance and growth. The sophomore year begins, the election of the new term of the social council has just ended, and I went to the barbecue restaurant next to the school for a party in the evening. I missed a holiday, everyone had a bit of fun, drank a lot, and a student the elder sister drank a little too much and spread nonsense on her boyfriend. Under the influence of the atmosphere, Wen Li also drank 2 cups. Her drinking capacity is average, the amount of a bottle of canned beer, she refused to drink more than 1 sip. Wen Li waved his hand, indicating that the senior who came to pour the wine would not drink it, but instead of persuading the senior to drink, he subconsciously glanced at the boy opposite, and said with a smile, okay, then you want to drink or not? Drinks, I'll ask Zhonglin to get some for you girls. The boy was unfamiliar, only knew that he was a classmate from a different department in the same class. Wen Li said, I don't drink anymore, senior, ask other girls. The senior heard the words but did not ask the other girls, only greeted a few girls next to Wen Li, and went to another table with wine. Seeing the senior walk away, a Wen Li's right side bumped Wen Li with her shoulder, what's the situation? Wenda Beauty has captured the heart of which ignorant boy again, not tonight there will be a special program confession. The short-haired Wen Li's left side smiled and said, hey, Chu Yalin, are you blind? The group of boys across the street have been staring here all night, those eyes are red and fruity, co-authored you didn't even notice it. Chu Yalin rolled her eyes and said, Guan Yu, you're blind, isn't this the kind of treatment you get when you hear the big beauty? Guan Yu shook her head, no, this time is different, you look at that look, first look at Wenli, then at Zhonglin, and then smile. You are good. Chu Yalin sneered, oh, man, it's a conspiracy. Wen Li took a piece of barbecue and said lightly, is there? Eat meat, this is delicious. Guan Yu laughed, Don't pretend to me. What do you mean? Wen Le gave her a look. Wen Le smiled and said, Are you annoying? Chu Yalin tapped the table with her index finger, Speak quickly. Wen Le said helplessly, I really don't know him well, I just knew his name. Guan Yu laughed, Are you going to reject him like this next? This classmate, you are a good person, but I don't know you. Ha 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 ha. Chu Yalin also laughed for a while, suddenly raised her cheeks and looked in Zhang Lin's direction, tisk tisk, and whispered, To be honest, the child is tall and handsome, and the conditions are quite good. Chu Yalin said sourly, Hey, do beautiful women have such advantages, but anyone who confesses to a beautiful woman is either handsome, rich, or overconfident. Wen Le did not have the habit of discussing personal matters such as feelings with unfamiliar people, so he directly changed the subject and said with a smile, If you have a boyfriend, don't make fun of single dogs. It's miserable. Chu Yalin burst out laughing when she heard the words, and looked at her boyfriend at the other table unconsciously, and her swaying eyes added to shyness. Woolen cloth. Chu Yalin coughed a little embarrassedly, It's not to the point of being inseparable. Guan Yu smiled, I think it's almost the same. The topic was finally completely distracted, when Le took a sip of the little wine left, and suddenly felt a little boring. Since she went to college, the snooping about her emotional problems has never stopped. It seems that in the eyes of snoopers, a beautiful woman who has been single for a long time must have some kind of secret worthy of gossip. But in fact, she has no secrets, no experience of being hurt, no homosexuality, no long-term crush, no unmarried people, her emotional experience is like a clean glass, or the empty kind. The reason why Wen Le chooses to be single is like she chooses to drink tea instead of coffee, and choose cotton pajamas instead of silk pajamas, because she likes it, because it is comfortable. It was also because she failed to meet the coffee and silk pajamas that moved her. The reason is too simple to say. And Wen Le was too lazy to explain. In the final analysis, Wen Le doesn't care much about the impression of her from snoopers. The school was in full swing soon after the school started. The crowd was very late, and it was nearly 9:30 when it was over. The vice-chairman was a calm senior. The older classmates were sent back, and several sober boys were arranged to accompany the girls back to the dormitory. Wen Le was with a few girls. Seeing a few people murmured something, Wen Le listened carefully and realized that Zhang Lin was also among the group of boys behind him. The topic at the dinner table that was diverted by Wen Le came back as it was, and the girl winked at Wen Le mockingly. Wen Le knew that they were not malicious, but did not react. People's dormitories are distributed in different dormitory areas, and when they reach the fork in the dormitory, men and women are separated one after another. She was the only one in the dormitory area where Wen Le lived, and she waved her hands to separate from the girls she knew. Couldn't help winking at Wen Le, and left each other playfully. Wen Le also saw Zhang Lin and several people behind him, and knew Zhang Lin's plan in his heart, but obviously the other party did not feel Wen Le's rejection. Everyone has left at this time, only Wen Le and Zhang Lin are left on the road. Wen Le followed the dim yellow light of the street lamp and walked in the direction of the dormitory. She did not expect this confession to happen. Wen Le's emotional attitude is relatively conservative, and does not approve of a unilateral confession. An untimely confession will only increase the embarrassment when working with each other. But the boy behind him hesitated for a moment and still called Wen Le, Wen Le. Wen Le wanted to pretend she didn't hear it, but the campus was really quiet at night, and this whisper was particularly abrupt in the silent night. Wen Le sighed in her heart and turned around. The face won the title of the flower. Since then, the suitors have continued to fight and setbacks. Wen Le's popularity has never been reduced by half from freshman to sophomore, but no one has ever plucked the flower of the School of Economics from the branches. At this time, Wen Le is standing under the dim street lamp, and looking at the beauty under the lamp can only be more charming. Wen Le has always loved long skirts, and the aligned skirt that covers the hips and knees is her favorite. Wen Le has always liked a ladylike and gentle style. Compared with some mini skirts, she just wants to show more girls, but Wen Le is more inclined to wrap herself tightly. The skirt should reach the knee, the short sleeve should reach the elbow, and the button should be tied to the top one. But she has never been very good at dressing up. With her classical charm, she is like a delicate lady from the last century who walked out of the movie, with a unique charm. Wen Le's long eyelashes cast fine shadows, and there is half light in Qia Shui's eyes, looking at Zhonglin calmly, and everything around her becomes her foil. The street lights are cast from above, ding ding the floating stars transformed by the doll effect. Wen Le at this moment is like the only heroine on the stage, with a dreamlike beauty that eclipses time. It is the beauty that drives suitors crazy. Wonder, I love. Wen Le suddenly interrupted Zhonglin's confession. Wen Le waved, I'm here. Wen Le has forgotten how long she has not been so impulsive. She thinks that alcohol may have numbed her brain, and her reason retreats in this quiet and tense night, allowing impulsiveness to prevail. So when Wen Le saw the person not far away, encouraged by alcohol, she was impulsive once. She didn't seem to hear Zhonglin's words, standing there smiling and waving like a beauty on the screen after special effects. The beauty is unreal. Zhonglin stared blankly at Wen Le and walked to the opposite side with a smile, and took a man's arm affectionately, but she seemed to remember something at this moment, and turned to Zhonglin and said, "This classmate, thank you very much, someone came to pick me up, you don't have to send it." Bye. Zhonglin was stunned by Wen Le's actions. He didn't see the man who was holding his arm by Wen Le and frowned slightly, subconsciously wanting to draw his hand, but when he saw Wen Le he hesitated for a moment and then gave up the action when he made that face. This subtle movement was only a moment, but it was still noticed by Wen Le. Wen Le felt that her brain was split into two halves, half of which had become muddy, ignorant, and had completely ignored Zhonglin. Wen Le didn't even notice, the man was following others, and even neglected that when Wen Le held the man's arm, the classmates beside the man were so shocked that their pupils trembled. The other half of the brain is running fast, capturing and observing every movement and reaction of the man. Wen Le took the man's arm and left. The man's roommate followed them. He didn't dare to speak but kept squeezing his eyes to signal the man to explain, his eyes almost cramping. The man made no sound, only frowned slightly. He smelled faint alcohol, mixed with a unique perfume. It wasn't until she reached the corner of the road that Wen Le let go of the man's arm. She was a little dizzy, she tugged her hair, stretched out her hand and pressed her temple, looked up at the man, and slowly returned to her senses. I haven't seen him for 3 years, the man is more handsome and taller than I remember. The faculty of the School of Economics is famous, but I didn't expect the real person to be more beautiful than the rumors. If I hadn't seen this face online, in this gentle night and light, I was so drunk that the other men in the room thought they had met the legendary goblin. This beauty is too much. Wen Le carefully looked at Zhou Cao's increasingly handsome and mature face, and had to admit that after 3 years of absence, the man was more handsome and taller than he remembered. And so far, she has never seen a more superior face than Zhou Cao's current face. Wen Le slowly took 2 steps back, and spoke softly, her voice was drunk and hoarse, so that her ears numb. "Long time no see, Zhou Cao." There was a slight inhalation sound around, but Zhou Cao didn't care, watching Wen Le for a while. "Did you drink?" Wen Le didn't answer him, only raised her arm to look at the time. Her voice was still a little drunk. "Thank you tonight, I'm a little dizzy, go first, see you later." Zhou Cao frowned slightly when he heard the words, "I will send you." Wen Le said, "No, it's very close." Zhou Cao turned around and signaled his roommate to go back first, and said to Wen Le, "Let's go. Be the first to walk away from the roommates." Wen Le walked back to the dormitory, shuttled in the brightly lit corridor, and gradually sobered up drunk. The head of the dormitory came back from another dormitory, Leal is back. Wen Le nodded lightly, yes. Spirit. The head of the dormitory muttered in his heart, took another look at Wen Le, but couldn't see the truth, and followed Wen Le into the dormitory. Wen Le sat down at the desk and slowly started to remove her makeup, but she looked a little out of her mind. The mobile phone on the table vibrated lightly. Wen Le looked subconsciously, and saw Cheng Hui, the shepherd who was playing on the mobile phone a few steps away, sent her a message. Hui, what's the matter Hui? See if you have something on your mind. Wen Le looked at Cheng Hui's two messages and didn't know how to speak, so she simply replied. WL, it's all right, I have a headache after drinking too much. It's not that Wen Le doesn't want to say it, it's just that she doesn't know what she's thinking, her thoughts are messy and incoherent. Wen Le always thinks of the man who brought him back today. I haven't seen him for 3 years. He is better than before. In the crowd, he can be caught at a glance. Wen Le remembered Zhou Cao's deep outline under the light, his eyebrows, the bridge of his nose, thin lips, neck, Adam's apple, and a little collarbone exposed outside the black tee. He's too handsome. Wen Le loves all beautiful things, and has little resistance to a top-level handsome guy like Zhou Cao. This dog man can be tested every week. Wen Le couldn't help but think of the past. She thought the picture she had forgotten for 3 years was still as clear as yesterday. Wen Le grew up in a remote mountain village with a beautiful environment in a southwestern province. Before she went to high school, she didn't even have a computer at home. And Zhou Cao, the eldest young master who was born with a golden spoon in his mouth, has been studying in a top private school since kindergarten all the way to high school, and even should have been recommended to college or study abroad. She should not have any intersection with Zhou Caoban. But just 3 years ago, Zhou Cao's father brought his family to the small remote city where Wenel was studying in high school due to job transfer. Zhou Cao transferred to the same school as Wen Le. The first exam on the first day of the weekly exam took Wen Le's first place in the school by a tenth. Wen Le has been in school since she was 7 years old, and no one has been able to take the first place from her. For nearly 10 years, Wen Le has always occupied the first place in the grade and has never missed it. Until the first semester of high school, I lost to the weekly test by 10 points. That was Wen Le's first taste of frustration. The world's top Jing Wenel cried for this, and from then on, Zhou Cao was completely listed as the #1 enemy in life. Even if Zhou Cao didn't know her character. As long as everything happens the first time, there will inevitably be a second, third, and nth time. 3 consecutive exams, 1 school entrance exam, 2 monthly exams, Wen Le lost one after another. Wen Le is in her bones the unsavory nature bred in the mountains, forests, and wilderness, how ladylike she is on the outside, how crazy she is on the inside. The successive failures could not shake Wen Le's self-confidence. She is a brave warrior who has been defeated and fought repeatedly until she wins. In the midterm exam that year, Wen Le wrote a full-score essay that appeared in the magazine, overwhelmed the weekly exam with a 5 point advantage, and regained the first place. It was also the first time Wen Le walked into Zhou Cao's life as a winner. The smell of Wen Le's perfume seems to be on the clothes, looming, quietly sultry in the quiet summer night. It's an elegant and feminine light floral fragrance, just like tonight's melody. Charming long curly hair, exquisite makeup, bright red dress, beautiful but unfamiliar. Zhou Cao couldn't help but think of the first time he saw Wenel. At that time, his father was calculated and his career was frustrated, and he was transferred to a small remote city in a southwestern province. His father was worried about his safety, so he took him with him, and he transferred to that small city. The only key high school in China. There is a big enough gap with the second place, but the gap between the second place and the third place is 50 points, and the gap between him and the second place is never more than 10 points. This situation makes Zhou Cao put away his contempt. Zhou Cao imagined that if the educational resources are equal, his competition with the second place will be more intense. But background is also a part of strength. Zhou Cao never paid attention to the second place. Until that midterm exam, the weekly exam was finally overtaken by the second place, who could not let go, and won the first place with a 5-point advantage over the weekly exam. Zhou Cao has read her articles. She is brilliant, simple, and sincere, surprising the age of the author, but also admirable. A close opponent is a precious gift to each other. Zhou Cao values and respects this rare opponent in his heart. Zhou Cao really saw Wen Le at the grade meeting held after the midterm exam. Zhou Cao, like all the students present, stood in the crowd under the flag-raising platform in blue and white school uniform, looking at the flag-raising platform. Wen Le came into his sight at this moment. Like everyone, Wen Le was wearing a blue and white school uniform. At that time Wen Le still had shoulder-length short hair, and the sun was shining with brownish-yellow light. Wen Le walked to the microphone calmly, the wind blew Wen Le's shoulder-length short hair, she smiled, proud and confident, and her eyes were bright, like stars. The 16-year-old Wen Le has a delicate face, which is naturally sculpted. Without makeup, she has a delicacy that is better than that of water hibiscus. It is a beauty that can amaze everyone just by pursing her lips and smiling. The green and tender appearance is like the orchid that just opened in the morning, decorated with dewdrops, fresh and beautiful, and unforgettable. Zhou Cao's eyes flashed with surprise. It turned out that the owner of the name who had been mentioned countless times in his ears, the powerful opponent, the talented writer, was actually such a beautiful girl. She has a temperament that is different from all the girls Zhou Cao has seen before, classical quietness, unrestrained wildness. She is like an orchid, precious and rare, but grows in this barren. The remote corners make people daydream and can't help but explore. Mysterious beauty is incredible. That was the first time Zhou Cao saw Wen Le. Brilliant and overly beautiful. No one cannot be moved by Wen Le at the age of 16. Weekly exams are no exception. Unfortunately, Zhou Cao didn't know what to think, and frowned slightly. I sneered when I thought of what I had thought. Never mind. Only, thinking about it like this, Zhou Cao felt upset for a while. Zhou Cao slowly walked towards the dormitory along the roadside, his thoughts scattered in the silent night. The faint perfume smell that Wen Le left on him didn't seem to dissipate, and it was still circling Zhou Cao's nose. Zhou Cao couldn't help but think of the glance he saw Wen Le under the street light just now. Wen Le stood in the same place under the street lamp, slightly drunk eyes with charming style, smiling at him with a charming look, a kind of soul-sucking attraction. At that moment Zhou Cao almost had a kind of charm in a trance of unreality, his breath stagnated, such amorous feelings and beauty shocked him. Zhou Cao thinks of the past, and the young Wen Le can easily attract him, and 3 years later, Wen Le reappears again, and with a completely different attitude, still makes him lose his temper. Zhou Cao frowned, a little repulsive in her heart. No amount of beautiful skin could hide her inside. Perhaps, I was too young, impulsive, and did not understand the truth. Zhou Cao's mouth curled into a mocking smile. But he will no longer be deceived by Wen Le's appearance. I entered the dormitory at the time of the door, but the roommate blocked the door when I opened the door. As soon as Zhou Cao opened the door, he was blocked behind the door by the roommates who had been waiting for a long time, posing a posture of torture to extract a confession. As soon as I entered the door, I was blocked by my roommate. Zhou Cao was helpless. Are you busy? Roommate Hang Shui said, there is still a small paper to be handed in tomorrow, but it doesn't matter. The roommate Cheng Liang echoed loudly, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that you have to explain it to us. The roommate Lance Hickson answered, explain. When did you, when? Lance Hickson was talking about the body of the drama, sobbing and choking, looking like he was hurt, and said aggrieved, when will you give my goddess, give it to Wu Wu. Before he finished speaking, Lance Hickson covered his face and pretended to cry. Zhou Cao said lightly, goddess? Who? Cheng Liang glared at him, who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Lance Hickson said, that's right, just the flower of the School of Economics, my goddess Wenel. Wen Le. The corner of Joe Cow's mouth twitched slightly, your goddess. Lance Hickson raised his chin, ah. What? Are you going to hit me? Joe Cow ignored Lance Hickson's tricks, and suddenly asked another thing, you said she was in the School of Economics. Hang Shui said, you don't know? How did you become your boyfriend? Joe Cow frowned slightly and said, she is not my girlfriend. Lance Hickson was shocked, you still don't admit it. My goddess admits it. Scumbag. Weekly test? A few roommates complained behind me. You scumbag. Scumbag. Weekly exam. Joe Cow came out of the shower, Lance Hickson still refused to give up, chased after Joe Cow and chatted endlessly, boss, what's the matter with you and my goddess, what's wrong with you two Yanba? Will we get together? You didn't tell us when you were in a relationship? No wonder you are not tempted by anyone chasing this high mountain flower. It turns out that you already have a girlfriend. Tisk tisk, if the girls in our school knew, their hearts would be broken. Lance Hickson held her heart and said, my heart is broken too. Joe Cow explained again with patience, I've only seen it before, I'm not familiar with it. Cheng Liang stepped forward and said curiously, that just now, she borrowed me to refuse to confess. Joe Cow twitched lightly, his tone sarcastic, can't you see? Lance Hickson, I understand. You are so miserable. Joe Cow looked at Lance Hickson expressionlessly. Lance Hickson shut his mouth shyly. Hang Shui was lying on the bed writing papers, and he didn't forget to interject, the main thing is, the two of you are together, it's too cool. Cheng Liang echoed, this can't be done, we can't stand it. Lance Hickson said, if the two of you are together, the school will have half the number of students. Half of the girls jumped into the river because of your heartbreak, and half of the boys jumped off the building because of the goddess's heartbreak. Tisk tisk, sin. Wen Le's first-hand articles are talented and elegant, and Joe Cow has always thought that Wen Le will choose the Faculty of Arts, but the freshmen of the Faculty of Letters of University A are also on the East Campus, and the Department of the Faculty of Arts Hwa has another person, and Joe Cow has never seen Wen Le in the East Campus again, so he thought that Wen Le was not in this school. I don't want Wen Le to choose a finance major and enter the School of Economics, and the freshmen of the School of Economics happen to be in the headquarters. Joe Cow couldn't figure out why everyone around him seemed to know Wen Le. Cheng Liang shook his phone and said, because we have a small campus radio. Campus Radio is an app officially released by University A for students to exchange information. After several generations of students' development, Campus Radio has become an entertainment app exclusively for A college students. Joe Cow downloaded this app at the beginning of the semester, but because of its strong entertainment nature, it was not very useful for weekly exams, so it was uninstalled that night. The total time spent on the test mobile phone should not exceed 5 minutes. Lance Hickson giggled twice, looked at Joe Cow sympathetically, but gloated in his tone, without BBS, you must not know the smile that made my goddess famous in battle. As early as the freshman year, when the military training was not over, Wen Le made a video all over the school. At that time, the newly admitted freshmen did not remember the names of their classmates, so they remembered first Wen Le's name. Wen Le's fame was purely accidental. There is an art school next door to a big, there are countless handsome men and beauties, and many stars in the entertainment industry are currently studying at the school. Li Legzu and Wen Le, who debuted as child stars, were candidates in the same class, and were admitted to the performance department of D University next door. University A and University D are located in the same university town, and they are two adjacent schools. Students from the two schools often visit the famous snack street near the school. Just after the military training that afternoon, Wen Le and his roommate went to a very famous cold drink shop near the school. It happened that Li Lexiu and his assistant were shooting a small video nearby. Yu Xiao's video is favored by major internet celebrities, and Li Lexiu also followed suit. Wen Le was holding a cold drink in one hand and a hat in the other, her long black hair was untied behind her back, and was laughing with her roommate when she suddenly heard someone shouting from behind, "Liel!" Wen Le turned back subconsciously and looked around at a loss, but saw another person in the middle of the crowd who turned back like her, only to realize that she was not calling herself, so she couldn't help laughing, turned and left with her roommate. Li Lexiu is exquisite in appearance, pure in temperament, and has a large fan base. The video was sent out, with hundreds of thousands of likes and reposts, and it became a popular video. Someone followed suit and posted the passers-by's perspective of Li Lexiu's video at that time. Different from Li Lexiu's own video where only Li Lexiu is alone, there are inevitably more other people in the camera from the perspective of passers-by. It was such an unintentional shot, but it clearly contained Wen Le, who was looking back and laughing behind Li Lexiu. Even if they are beautiful, it is best to avoid comparison. Wen Le's beauty is better than her grades. From a remote mountain in a southwestern province to the capital, she has never been defeated. In the video, Wen Le is wearing a camouflage uniform, with a valiant appearance, no makeup on her face, fresh and delicate, bright and unpretentious. She looked back inadvertently, then froze for a moment, her long eyelashes trembled slightly, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. A light glance back, but it is a powerful beauty crit. Wen Le seems to be the focus of the crowd as long as she exists, and the whole audience becomes her foil. Even the little flower Li Lexiu, who is also under the camera of passers-by, cannot avoid the fate of becoming a foil. Just one glance, the shock level is comparable to a concert, the video quickly exploded, and the popularity even surpassed Li Lexiu's original video. Someone in the school discovered that the girl in the video was a freshman from the School of Economics of University A, and sent the video to the BBS forum. Once the video appeared on the forum, many people recognized the news. Le, even if he is not a classmate, seems to be attracted to the beautiful men and women he encounters on the road because of people's natural desire for beauty. The video on the internet was later deleted, but the video in the forum has been preserved. Lance Hickson took out his mobile phone like offering a treasure, turned on the small campus radio, and said meanly, "Show you the god-level scene of my goddess, pay attention to the image, don't bleed from the nose." Perhaps because of her age, Wen Le gradually reduced her edge, which directly made her appearance more confusing. Zhou Cao saw Wen Le's sharp-edged appearance. The 16-year-old Wen Le is even more tender and tender. Wen Le slowly walked up to the rostrum under the attention of thousands of people, walking calmly, with firm and confident eyes, and when she reached the last step, Wen Le seemed to glance at the audience inadvertently and was meeting Zhou Cao's gaze. Wen Le's eyes were self-confidence and indifference from the soul. She curled her lips into a smile, which seemed to be provocation and oath to him. Like a queen. Nowadays, she has restrained her sharpness and become more gentle and dignified. She easily removes people's guards and relaxes people's vigilance, but the occasional humiliation and pride in her eyes have never changed. Thinking of this week's exam, she frowned slightly, and she threw away the picture in her head, and stopped thinking about Wenel. Shortly after the school started, the club was recruiting new students. As the newly appointed deputy minister, Wen Le is one of today's interviewers. Although a university is a top university that gathers top students from all over the country, the personalities of the top students are not uniform, and their ideas are also full of strange. A boy in the department complained in a low voice, "This is more tiring than me taking a physics competition. Wen Le's group is okay, there has never been a strange person, and I still can't understand the boy's feelings." Guan Yu, who was interviewing with Wen Le, whispered in Wen Le's ear, "One of my roommates is from the student union." In the External Affairs Department, a boy came during the interview, and he came up with a foreign language. My roommate and several interviewers were stunned and couldn't understand at all. The boy sneered and said contemptuously, "Don't you have any foreign language in your foreign affairs department? It seems that this department has enough people." Disappointed. Then he left. Guan Yu rolled her eyes as she said, "My roommate had a question mark on his forehead, he was so angry at the time." When Lexi was possessed by the essence of the opera, and learned, "Hey, classmate, your pronunciation is not standard, tisk tisk, your spoken language is not good, this translation software can't recognize it at all." Guan Yu was out of breath when she heard the words, "Ha ha ha, I really have you." Of course, normal people and even excellent interviewers still account for more than 90% of the interviewees, but there are always a few who let themselves go, and the interviewers are caught off guard. Wen Le never imagined that as soon as he made fun of others, he was hit. In the last 2 interviews, the penultimate interviewee was a junior with a special personality. He stared at Wen Le. Wen Le frowned, and she was offended by such a straight look. The next thing is exaggeration. Faced with the question asked by the senior, the younger brother turned a deaf ear, but instead looked straight at Wen Le and began to chat without any scruples. "What's the name of my sister? Does senpai have a boyfriend? What is the ideal type of senpai?" Completely ignoring the questions of the seniors and seniors, expressing themselves recklessly like a peacock with an open screen, seemingly forgetting this matter in an interview. Wen Le and the interviewer who was sitting looked very bad. Wen Le knocked on the table with a dark face and said, "Classmate, this is an interview, please have a good attitude. Otherwise, please go out." The younger brother smiled and changed his posture when he heard the words, "Sister, why are you so serious?" Wen Le closed the registration form and said, "Okay, classmate, your interview is over, the next one." The younger brother spread his hands indifferently and said, "To be honest, sister, I just heard that you can come to your WeChat to join the social association. I came here, sister, you can't let me go back empty-handed." The male examiner who was present had already stood up and was about to chase people away, with an impatient look on his face, but at this moment, when the interview in classroom 203 was over, Zhang Lin pushed the door and walked in. Hearing the words of his junior, he couldn't help wrinkling. "Raise your brows." Zhang Lin sneered and walked over with 2 other boys in the department, and said to the sly boy, "Don't worry, your senior is not single, his boyfriend is law school Joe. Cow, is it interesting for you to mess around here?" Grass. The boy looked at Wen Le unwillingly, but worried about Zhang Lin and the men in the room, kicked the chair, got up and left cursing. At this time, in a huge room, interviewers from different departments in the same department are all focusing on Wen Le, no one wants to bother to pay attention to a rogue. A more concerned topic, the news mentioned by Zhang Lingeng. A girl exclaimed in a low voice, "My God, is what Zhang Lin said true? Wen Le." Everyone in the house is staring at Wen Le, waiting for Wen Le's reply. Wen Le's mind is full of the stupid things she did yesterday, but she ignores the question of why everyone around her seems to know Zhou Cao. What did she do? Looking for Zhou Cao, who has not seen him for 3 years, pretending to be a boyfriend and girlfriend to reject Zhang Lin. Wen Le thought that she must be crazy at first, and she never thought about how she would get off the stage if Zhang Lin confirmed to her in public. Perhaps she had expected this embarrassing situation at the time, but the brain paralyzed by alcohol affected his judgment. So she finally sat down on impulse and regretted it. With the eyes of everyone, Wen Le was stiff, unable to describe her embarrassment in words. She can't deny in front of Zhang Lin, but she can't admit it in front of everyone. In a dilemma, the taste is too sour. But Wen Le has a lot of burdens, how could she lose face in front of everyone, so she managed her expression, coughed lightly, smiled embarrassedly, and said, "What are you doing, the examiners? The interview." Everyone didn't say anything when they saw her, they just thought she was embarrassed to talk about her relationship in front of everyone. She just assumed it was her acquiescence, and was embarrassed to ask after her, and called the last person to come in for an interview. As soon as the interview was over, Wen Le took advantage of the fact that everyone had not yet reacted, picked up her bag, claimed that she had something to do temporarily, and slipped away. Until she has no idea how to deal with the embarrassing question, avoiding is the best answer. Wen Le hurried back to the dormitory almost embarrassed. After closing the door, Wen Le realized something was wrong. Why everyone around him seemed to know Zhou Cao. It was only yesterday that she learned that Zhou Cao was also in a university. I was thinking about it when I heard the excited screams of my roommate. As soon as I heard this voice, I knew they were watching handsome guys go crazy. Wen Le put down her bag and took 2 steps forward. What are you doing? As soon as Wen Le returned to the dormitory, she heard the chatter of the roommates. Go 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 go! Ah ah ah! Vote for him! Vote for Lao Tzu! Seeing this, he smiled and said, What are you doing? Why are you so excited? Have you forgotten what day it is? Wen Le was taken aback. What day? The roommate Manqing turned his head and stared at Wen Le with a serious face. For a moment, his serious face cracked and he shouted excitedly, It's the day of the BBS school grass selection. Wen Le suddenly realized, understood. Bao Xiaofan was still fiddling with his mobile phone with his head down, tapped a few times, and suddenly put down his mobile phone. Come on! Liel, vote for number 3, the dormitory is 1 vote away from you. Quick! There are 3 minutes left. It's over. Hurry up! Wen Le waved her hand, You forgot, I don't have the BBS app. Wen Le, as a campus BBS celebrity, didn't want to see other people's messages about herself on BBS, so she uninstalled BBS early, and she didn't have anything like the campus confession wall. Bao Xiaofan waved his hand, It's okay. It's not important. I'll send you the link on WeChat, you click in and vote for No 3. Manqing Xian clasped his fingers together and said tearfully, You don't know how important your vote is to us. Wen Le, I don't know. Shi Changcheng Hui was nibbling on an apple on the bed, and said vaguely, This year, there is a candidate who is an internet celebrity, very shamelessly mobilized his fans to vote for him, which led to the number of votes is inflated. We choose the school grass of our own school. What are outsiders messing around with? Although he looks good and a little handsome, it would be great to be a grassroots class. It really ruins the popularity of the passers-by. Bao Xiaofan clapped his hands and said, This person simply doesn't know what to call it. You must know that the school grass also represents the level of appearance of our school, and is the face and welfare of our girls. A real Yan school grass can break the public's inherent impression of our A university. Although we have a lot of academics, our appearance is not bad. Besides, a dark horse came out this year. His appearance, body and temperament are absolutely such a fairy who has the confidence to sweep the school grass of major universities. You say, he is not the school grass, who is the school grass? Manqing Xian also echoed, originally, with the appearance of number 3 player, the school grass is definitely his, but the internet celebrity did such a thing, and all of a sudden the votes are up. Our number 3 school grass throne is in jeopardy. Wen Le clicked on the link and asked curiously, So now the most voted is the internet celebrity contestant? Sheriff sneered, That's not possible. Bao Xiaofan also raised his chest proudly and said, BBS has opened a post for this afternoon. Since the internet celebrity players can mobilize fans, then we can also mobilize fans. Friends and relatives, after an afternoon of fierce battles, we finally got the votes for the number 3 contestant. Hey Liel, how are you? There are still 2 minutes left. Wen Le can't fiddle with it, I won't do it. At this time, the head of the house suddenly shouted, Gan. The number of internet celebrity votes has caught up. Ah ah ah! Hurry up, it's approaching. Wen Le, hurry up. Not even one vote. Relax. It's less than a minute away. Bao Xiaofan and Man Qingxian also shouted nervously, ah ah ah. There are 2 more votes to catch up. And when Ellie was also nervous when they shouted, "Okay. Don't rush." The green progress bar finally came to an end, and the blank page was refreshed. When Ellie just breathed a sigh of relief when she heard Cheng Hui, the head of the house, shout, "Gan! The votes are tied." When happy. When Ellie shook her hand, quickly pulled down the page, hurriedly selected the 3rd contestant, and clicked OK to submit the application. The page shows that the vote was successful, and the time just reached 10 o'clock, and the voting officially ended. When Ellie exhaled and said, "How about taking it?" Then there was a burst of cheers in the dormitory, and vaguely, when Ellie could hear the cheers from the dormitory next door in the corridor, and it was a bit ridiculous for a while. The headmaster put down his phone and patted Wenel on the shoulder, "Thank you, comrade. Thanks for your last moment, that crucial vote. Zhou Cao students finally won the school draft by 1 vote. Title: Liel, congratulations, you personally sent our number 3 contestant, Zhou Cao classmate to the throne of the school grass." When Ellie was stunned for a moment, "Who do you think the 3rd player is?" The president said, "Weekly exam, law school weekly exam." When Ellie was stunned, "Sophomore." The head of the house said, "Yeah, can it still be a freshman? Most of our freshmen are not in the headquarters in the East Campus, and do not participate in the selection of the school grass, only after the sophomores have returned to the headquarters. Participate in the selection of school grass." When Ellie. "I was so rushed just now that she voted without seeing the photo at all. She actually threw this dog man into school grass." Since meeting Zhou Cao, Wen Li's luck has been a little bad. After seeing the weekly exam that day, Wen Li didn't go well for a week. The manuscript that was first sent out was called back and asked to be rewritten. In the afternoon, the event arranged by the Federation of Social Organizations temporarily went into trouble, causing people to turn around. To make matters worse, someone spread the news about Wen Li and Zhou Cao. It's hard to ride a tiger, Wen Li knows what it's like. Wednesday afternoon public class, Wen Li and roommates came a little early, and habitually sat in the 3rd row by the window. Always like this location. On WeChat, there is a classmate from the social association who wants to say that the social association cannot go on duty in the afternoon, and wants to change classes with Wen Li. Wen Li turned over the class schedule and memorandum, and was about to reply to his news, but suddenly got tapped lightly. Wen Li looked up and saw that she was a girl from the same department and different class. She looked familiar, but she had never met and was not familiar. Wen Li's eyes were a little dazed, and her beautiful eyes showed 2 senses of innocence. Wen Li asked, "Is something wrong?" The girl has a doll head, big eyes with neat bangs, and a slightly flat nose, but her skin is very white, and she wears tomato red lipstick, which is lovely. Before the girl spoke, she was shocked by Wen Li's beauty. She stretched out her hand to cover her mouth, and called out, "Mom is so beautiful." Wen Li was accustomed to being praised, and almost subconsciously showed a shy and gentle smile. When others praised her appearance, she didn't know how to answer, so she always responded with such a smile. The girl remembered the purpose of her coming to find Wenel. She stroked her bangs embarrassedly, and asked in a low voice, "I'm sorry, I'm Pan Yingying from the second class, we are in the same department. I just listened they all said that you and the newly promoted school grass were together, so they wanted to come up and ask, is this true?" Pan Yingying's eyes flashed a light that made Wen Li feel a little familiar. Wen Li always felt that this expression seemed familiar, but at this moment Wen Li's attention was distracted by Pan Yingying's words. Wen Li has not yet after reacting, his eyes became more and more dazed. "New school grass." Pan Yingying said, "Zhou exam." Wen Li was stunned when she heard the words. Something exploded in Wen Li's mind with the sound of boom, and Wen Li's face quickly turned red. The words and barrages rolling in Wen Li's mind at this moment are, self-inflicted sins can't live, impulsiveness is the devil, riding a tiger is difficult, shameful. I was driven by alcohol on a whim for many years, and this time I almost lost my old face. You will always have to pay back. Wen Li pulled out a fake smile, tried her best to appear calm and casual, and said, "Who said that? Nothing." As soon as these words came out, Wen Li felt more and more that there was no problem at all. Anyway, she drank alcohol that day. Wen Li tugged her hair, with a charming and firm tone, and said with a smile, "If someone asks again, please help me to clarify, this kind of message is not good for both parties. Wan a couple has someone they like, right? You know that too." "Ah." Pan Yingying let out a disappointed sigh when she heard this. She said in frustration, "But I think you guys are a good match." "Wonder. Are you knocking me and that dog man CP? You don't look good, do you?" After Pan Yingying left, Wen Li replied to the message on WeChat and changed classes with the classmate. Cheng Hui poked Wen Li. "Li, what's going on?" Wen Li blinked. "What?" Cheng Hui said, "Just you and Zhou Cao. When did you get involved with Zhou Cao? Many people asked me on WeChat this morning when you two were together." "Wonder." Wen Li, "No, we're not together." While speaking, she muttered, "How come the news spread so quickly, big mouth?" Cheng Hui, "What's the news? What's going on?" Wen Li looked around to see that it was still early, and there was no one around, so Wen Li approached Cheng Hui, lowered her voice, and talked about the matter. Cheng Hui was shocked when she heard this. "So Zhou Cao is actually your high school classmate?" Wen Li said, "No, he stayed in our school for less than a semester, not a class." Cheng Hui still felt a little magical. "You used him as a shield," he agreed. Wen Li nodded. "He really cares about being a gentleman or something." Cheng Hui tutted twice and glanced at Wen Li suspiciously. "To be honest, Liel, you really don't like him." Wen Li heard the words and sneered, "Dog man, if I like him, my surname will be his." Cheng Hui frowned, pouted, shook her head, "But he's really handsome. Didn't you vote him as the school grass?" Wen Li turned to look at Cheng Hui. Her eyes were full of accusations of being deceived. "If it weren't for you guys, how would I vote for that dog man? I don't know that I voted for him." Cheng Hui said, "Liel, but he is really handsome." Wen Lepi smiled and said, "I love being single is really knocking happy." Wen Li did not leave with her roommates after class. She changed classes with her classmates from the HKCSS, packed her bags and went directly to Building J, where the HKCSS is located. There is no one in Building J at this point, except for the security guard who guards the door. There is no one on the first floor of Building J. Wen Li changed the timetable with the classmates who were on duty in the previous class and signed. Before leaving, the classmates said, "Classroom 201 is still in use. When they leave, don't forget to collect the keys." The minister just said that there may be people from the student union to deliver documents at night. After the documents, lock the door and leave. When Le nodded, "Okay, I wrote it down. Then I'm leaving." "Well, bye." There was no one on duty in the afternoon. When Le simply cleaned up the hygiene of the office, sat down on the desk, took out her homework and wrote for a while. I don't know what meeting was held in 201 upstairs. It lasted for another hour after Wen Le arrived. When Le received the key, it was close to dinner time. I ordered takeaway for dinner, and I simply ate 2 bites. After finishing the homework, take out the USB flash drive and use the office computer to modify the manuscript. 2 weeks ago, Wen Le submitted a manuscript to Wengxing magazine, but was called back 2 days ago and asked for a major change. Wen Le has been writing something online since her freshman year to earn some pocket money. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the long-awaited document finally arrived late. Wen Le and the students in the student union handed over the documents, made records, packed up, turned off the computer and lights, locked the door and left. A university is a university with a history of 100 years. The long history makes the hardware facilities of a university old and backward. The school is renovating various buildings on campus year by year, but the dormitory building and the dormitory building are the first to start construction. In the teaching building, Building J is on the page of the renovation schedule, and the chandeliers in the corridor of the old Building J are also dim due to disrepair. When Le walked through the dimly lit corridor and walked to the door of Building J, a gust of wind blew past, the tall trees and vines rustled at the door, and the dim external lights above her head creaked. There was an inexplicable sense of creepy horror in this silent night. At this moment, Wen Le found a person standing in the shadow of the trees. When Le was taken aback, her heart almost stopped, she cursed inwardly, but her face was calm. When Le pretended not to see, turned and walked towards the exit. Building J is located on a high platform of half a meter. Below the platform is the sidewalk. There are street lights on the sidewalk, so the line of sight will be better. There are steps to the east of the exit of Building J. In fact, it is not too high to jump from a high platform half a meter high, but few people choose to jump from the high platform. When Le walked directly to the steps, but was stopped after a few steps. Wonder. To be honest, there were only 2 people in the dark, and the other was a boy. When Le didn't want to look back. When Le also pretended not to hear and continued to walk up the steps. The people behind him ignored him and refused to give up. He sprinted a few steps forward, Sister Wenel. When Le could feel that the man had run behind him, so he had to turn around and look at the person coming. Seeing each other's face vaguely through the dim light, When Le felt familiar at first, but couldn't remember. When Le only took 2 steps back vigilantly, with a polite smile on her face, "Is there something wrong with me?" The man had a smile on his face when he heard this. "Sister, do you still remember me? I didn't get your WeChat that day and thought you forgot me." When Le remembered who this person was as soon as he heard it. It was the person who asked for her contact information during the interview with the social association that day. Taking a step back, the smile on his face remained unchanged. "Why are you here so late?" The person said, "I know that my senior is on duty at the social association. I will always look at the office when I pass by here in the evening when I am studying. I don't want to happen to be here today, so I will stay." "Wait, senpai." When Le endured the discomfort and said, "Do you have anything to do with me?" The apprentice eagerly took 2 steps forward. When Le couldn't help but be forced to take 2 steps back, the apprentice said, "Sister, they said that day that you have a boyfriend. I don't believe it. I've been with you for a day, and you haven't contacted other boys at all. Senior, you lied to me, right?" When Lee's face froze, her eyes narrowed, and her voice was dangerous. "What did you say?" What? Follow me for a day? The younger brother just said to himself, and did not respond to Wen Letty's question. Sister, I really like you, senpai, go out with me. I know you and that boy are fake. Besides, what can I do better than the little white face who took the test last week? Is he richer or more handsome than me? Senior lady, don't be deceived by his little white face, people like him will only deceive children everywhere. Girl. He was still excited to take 2 steps forward. When Le was forced to take 2 steps back, he said, Sister, look, only I can give you happiness, only I can match you, senpai, stay with me. Speaking of which, I will start to catch Wenel. When Le subconsciously stretched out her hand and took a step back to dodge, but she didn't know that she was already standing on the edge of the high platform after being forced by the junior in front of her. When Le lost his balance and fell to the high platform. Senpai, be careful. The younger brother suddenly widened his eyes and was about to reach out to grab Wen Le, but he was still a step too late. The sense of weightlessness made Wen Le's pupils shrink. Wen Le closed his eyes, and resignedly waited for the pain to strike. However, she was suddenly embraced by a pair of strong arms into a warm and firm embrace. Wen Le was slightly startled, a familiar fragrance came from the tip of her nose. When Le opened her eyes subconsciously, and under the bright street lamp, Zhou Cao's handsome and profound silhouette came into Wen Le's eyes. When Zhou Cao caught Wen Le, he turned half a circle in place to buffer the force of the fall. Wen Le's long skirt swayed beautifully in the air. Wen Le's hands climbed Zhou Cao's shoulders at some point, and his eyes were fixed on Zhou Cao's profile. The light on Zhou Cao's light brown hair seemed to have stars falling on it, but not as bright as the stars in Zhou Cao's eyes. When Le looked at Zhou Cao almost absent-mindedly, at that moment, this week's exam was really handsome. When Le felt that the girl who had been silent for a long time heart beat loudly twice. Blame the night for being so beautiful. Zhou Cao steadied his body, still holding Wen Le in both hands. The street lamp shone a gentle light. Wen Le's snow-white skirt elegantly covered Wen Le's calf, revealing slender ankles, and a pair of snow-white little leather shoes are neatly put together. Zhou Cao lowered his head, the beauty in his arms crouched in her arms, and the snow-white soft catfish supported his shoulders. Zhou Cao couldn't help but move his throat slightly, and said softly, "It's me." His voice was a little low, especially gentle in this night. When Le looked at Zhou Cao's Adam's apple and nodded, yes. The atmosphere between them didn't seem as stiff as when they first met. Zhou Cao whispered, "I was confessed again." When Le grabbed Zhou Cao's clothes and whispered, "He spoke ill of you." Zhou Cao hummed, but did not get angry, but said indifferently, "I heard." When Le heard the words, couldn't help pursing her lips and chuckled, looked up at Zhou Cao. Maybe the hero saved the beauty just now played a role. When Le whispered in a soft tone like never before, Zhou Cao said, "Help me." Zhou Cao didn't speak, he just hugged Wen Le and turned to look at the junior who was talking bad about him just now. Zhou Cao hugged Wen Le, turned around, with a gentle smile on the corner of his mouth, but the temperature in his eyes was freezing. He glanced up and down the boy's eyes, didn't say anything, only smiled at the corner of his mouth as the meaning deepened. The boy blushed instantly, and there was no more contempt and disdain than this. 188 Zhou Cao has a figure comparable to that of a male model. The influence of his family and his own excellence give Zhou Cao a kind of dignified and alienated temperament. He has a kind of casual confidence and everything in his eyes all the year round. The calmness in his grip alone makes him stand out from a group of immature peers. Coupled with Zhou Cao's overly handsome face, ordinary people who only appear in front of Zhou Cao will be shorter than her. The two appear in the same space, and the contrast is extremely tragic. Zhou Cao didn't even make a reply to the boy's evaluation of him, just glanced at it lightly, and made the other party feel ashamed. "I took my girlfriend with me, as for you." Zhou Cao paused, looked at the boy with pressure and warning in his eyes, and said, "It's better not to appear again." The apprentice fled. Zhou Cao put Wen Le down and said, I heard that you personally voted me into the school grass. Wen Li's feet twitched, her eyes full of shock. Who said that? How are they all so loud? Zhou Cao said lightly, someone else. Wen Li gritted her teeth, but a smile appeared on her face. This is just a misunderstanding. Zhou Cao raised his eyebrows, did not continue to ask, only said, I saw you twice, and every time I was confessed at night. Wen Li twitched the corner of her mouth, it's all my charm. Zhou Cao said lightly, I hope there is no third time. Wen Li said, no. Wen Li pushed open the door of the dormitory, but didn't push it, as if she was stuck by something. Wen Li knocked on the door, and a shout came from the dormitory, wait! Wait! Wen Li waited for a while, and heard a rustling sound from behind the dormitory door. After a while, the door was opened. Wen Li glanced at the dormitory and knew why she couldn't open the door. The small aisle of the dormitory is full of boxes and wrapping papers of various sizes that have been dismantled in a mess. Wen Li feels that the road from the door to his study desk is obstructed, and there is almost no place for him foot. And in the middle of the pile of things, there is another person who is unpacking, continuing to make garbage, and chattering about the origin of each thing. When we came out of the show, Zhen Zhen asked if we should go shopping again. There were too many people at Lafayette and we went to Paris Spring again. This bag is tens of thousands of dollars, Zhen Zhen. I just glanced at it, and said that it was very suitable for Ami, so I swiped the card. I liked this dress at a glance. Although it is a little expensive, how can I let go of the things I like? So I reluctantly bought it. It's down, but I don't regret it because it's so beautiful. Sun Yumei was chattering endlessly, and Cheng Hui, who was forcibly pulled by Sun Yumei, had a stiff smile on her face, and there was a trace of pain in her expression. The clothes are all black tee, white tee, and sweatpants that cost tens of dollars. She doesn't know anything about Sun Mimi's delicate life, and she has no desire to explore. Man Qingxian and Bao Xiaofan went to bed unscrupulously, watching the show with headphones. Wen Li wanted to laugh a little, so she held back her laughter, tiptoed to find the gap, and said, hey, this is... Sun Yumei looked back and saw Wenel, looked at Wenel up and down, saw Wenel wearing a long white dress, long black hair with a ball on top of her head, and a bling-bling crystal hairpin, delicate makeup, slender neck, outstanding temperament. Sun Yumei's face froze. She has been a beauty scholar since she was a child. Her smart head and beautiful face make her popular wherever she goes. In the college entrance examination, he performed exceptionally well, and with the bonus points obtained by self-enrollment, he was successfully admitted to the top A university in the country. I thought that she would definitely be sought after by her classmates because of her beauty, and the name of the flower class was even more easily captured. Sun Yumei even imagined what kind of attention and fame the gimmicks of a big beauty and a scholar can bring her. But she never thought that the fleeting years were unfavorable, so she met Wenel, and she met Wenel, who was popular all over the school with her beauty as soon as she entered the school. The beautiful picture that Sun Yumei imagined was shattered by reality. Against the light of Wenel, her beauty seemed to be greatly reduced, just like the moon covered the light of the stars. As long as Wenel appeared in the place, she seemed to be the star that was covered with light, dim and inconspicuous. Sun Yumei has been the focus of the crowd since she was a child, and is highly sought after by those around her. This huge gap makes Sun Yumei unacceptable no matter what. Sun Yumei didn't like this overly beautiful girl from the first time she saw Wen Li, and even after Wen Li covered up her light, she regarded her as a thorn in the flesh. Sun Yumei now the most annoying thing is being in the same space as Wen Li and breathing the same air, which makes her feel suffocated. Sun Yumei drooped down her excited face when Wen Li appeared, turned her head and raised her eyelids slightly and glanced at Wen Li. She saw Wen Li in a long white dress, graceful Li, even more angry, the expression on his face collapsed by 3 points. As soon as Wen Li appeared, she unpacked Sun Mimi to show off her luxury bags and clothes and destroyed the good mood. Sun Mimi gritted her teeth in hatred, but she still said perfunctorily, "Hey, I'm back." The adult world is so hypocritical and harmonious. When Le put the backpack on the table and greeted, "When will you may come back?" Just in the afternoon, Sun Yumei said perfunctorily. When she glanced at Wen Li's backpack, she sneered in her heart and cursed a poor ghost, but her mood suddenly improved. Sun Mimi turned her head in a good mood, and fluttered her hair in a charming manner. The four-leaf clover ring of Van Cleef and Arpels in her hand was unexpectedly eye-catching on her snow-white fingers. Cheng Hui saw Wen Le, and the smile on her face was finally no longer stiff. Taking advantage of the gap between Sun Yumei's turn, she blinked at Wen Le, motioning Wen Le to remove herself from this boring rescued from the topic. Wen Le chuckled in her heart, Cheng Hui blinked, and said with a good temper, "The beautiful ring is really beautiful." Sun Yumei's vanity was greatly satisfied, and her attention was really diverted. She didn't intend to continue to drag Cheng Hui, but lightly touched the ring on her hand and said in a unique arrogant tone, "It's okay, more than 2,000 euros, but he insists on buying it for me, there is no way." Cheng Hui rolled her eyes where Sun Yumei could not see. Sun Yumei is a wonderful flower in their dormitory. There are actually 6 people in their dormitory, besides Cheng Hui, Wen Le, Bao Xiaofan and Man Qingxian, there are 2 more, one is Shen Long, who goes out early and returns late. Ai Fei, a hard-working scholar, and this little beauty, Sun Yumei. Sun Mimi, white skin, big eyes and small round face, looks sweet and cute, but her temperament is not as simple and cute as her appearance, on the contrary, she has a lot of scheming. The little girl is very vain. Since the beginning of her freshman year, Sun Yumei has tried her best to make herself a white and rich beauty. Clothes and bags are all big brands, perfume and skincare products are also thousands of dollars. The 6 people in the dormitory 307, except Bao Xiaofan, are all from small cities. Their parents are ordinary working families. Wen Le is from a remote mountain village in a southwest province. Wen Le, who just entered the university, could not even recognize the logos of major brands on Sun Yumei's clothes and bags at first. Sun Yumei not only plays cards with clothes, bags, but also spends a lot of money, and her style is extravagant. She also accidentally revealed that her family is engaged in business, and the dormitory is a few buns who are not deep in the world. Song was deceived by Sun Yumei, and Sun Yumei's Bai Fumei was standing in the dormitory anyway. But Sun Yumei doesn't just want to set up a character in the dormitory, she wants to be a white man in the class, department, even the whole school, and in the society where he can't get in touch with his real background. Fumei people set up to live. But the people outside the dormitory are not as easy to deceive as the group of buns in the 307 dormitory, but every lie will be exposed one day. Cheng Hui has a good temper and popularity, and has a good relationship with the girls in the class. Cheng Hui has such a unique temperament. Although it may not attract boys, it can give girls a strong sense of security. Almost no girl rejects her or doesn't like her. One time Cheng Hui went to another dormitory for a chat, and in the gossip room, the girl in the next dormitory who had a savage personality and a hot personality directly pierced Sun Yumei's lies. "The Sun Yumei in your dormitory is too interesting, isn't she? Has she always set herself up as a rich and beautiful person? My god, those clothes and bags on her body are all goods in Chengdu, right? Okay, I'm still wearing it, who can't see it? I'm wearing it." Girls have the analytical reasoning ability comparable to Sherlock Holmes once they gossip, and their analysis at every step is perfect. There is no impermeable wall in the world, and her old classmates know exactly what kind of family conditions Sun Yumei has. One of my friends has such a person, who knows Sun Yumei's background very well. Sun Yumei's mother is an elementary school teacher, and her father runs a large bookstore. But Sun Yumei does spend money and is extravagant on weekdays, but this is because he has a boyfriend who drives a Porsche. Most of her designer bags, designer clothes, and even her daily expenses come from this well-kept secret boyfriend. How tightly she concealed it. Before that, the 5 people in the 307 dormitory thought that Sun Yuya was single. Later, once, her boyfriend and her quarreled so badly that she surprised everyone by crying in the middle of the night, and only then did she admit that she had a boyfriend. Since then, she has fallen into a vicious circle of showing affection. She is not bad, but she is very competitive and vain, and her roommates did not want to make the dorm atmosphere weird and did not expose her. They are all adults, and there is no need for others to dictate the life they choose. Her boyfriend has a big business in the family and often takes her out to meet people from the rich second-generation circle. It is also because of this that Sun Yumei met Zhen Zhen, who gave him a bag. It's a girl from the same class at the art school next door, the real Bai Fumei. 2 days ago, Zhen Zhen invited Sun Yumei to watch the show in Paris. The guide Sun Yumei took a few days of sick leave and flew to Paris with his boyfriend, Zhen Zhen, and a few friends from that circle watch the show. This evening, I just returned to the dormitory with a bag of things, and while dismantling and showing off, the entire dormitory was messed up. She is such a character. In fact, apart from vanity, it's quite simple. After finding a sense of superiority in Wen Le, he began to drag Wen Le to talk about his experiences in Paris. I saw her thoughts, but didn't care about her. It was really late. When Le took the dormitory head to wash, the dormitory head looked at the chaos in the dormitory, had a headache, and shouted, "Clean up the dormitory before I come back." Sun Yumei smiled and scolded, "I know, it's annoying. The entire dormitory is covered with crabs." After when Le and the dormitory washed up, they heard Sun Yuya shouting while holding the mobile phone, so shocked that the two with earphones could not help but take off the earphones and turn back. "Wen Le, you are actually with Zhou Cao." Wen Le looked at Sun Yumei's eyes full of shock and anger, and tilted her head, "What's the situation? You and Zhou Cao together?" Sun Yumei looked up and down Wen Le with a strange look. She pointed to the page on the phone, and said, "It's fake, right?" Wen Le didn't know why she had such a strong reaction. Wen Le's long eyelashes fluttered, covering the fleeting emotions. A smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, and said casually, "Gossip on the internet, can you believe it?" Sun Yumei looked at Wen Le for a while, but couldn't find anything wrong with Wen Le, so she looked away from Wen Le as if letting go of Wen Le, but her tone was a little bit different, subtle, "That's fine." Wen Le's face was calm, but her eyes gradually deepened, showing a coldness. Wen Le's tone was a little lazy, "What?" Sun Yumei once again glanced up and down at Wen Le with those eyes that measure the price. She thought she was doing it very secretly, but her attitude and expression revealed her thoughts. Sun Yumei said, "How could a family like Zhou Cao accept a commoner girl, and it's just nothing to think about him." The smile on Wen Le's face disappeared completely. She looked at Sun Yumei coldly, raised her eyebrows. "Just now the sweet and innocent princess turned into a strong queen. What kind of family is he? Who? Did you work on him?" Seeing this, Sun Yumei was a little cowardly, and immediately changed her attitude. "Oh, I just heard that Zhou Kaojia's background is very deep. Let's gossip with everyone. Their kind of girl from an ordinary family is going to provoke he worked for nothing." Wen Le said coldly, "Oh, is that so? Hey, I think quite a few people like him. I used to think that what the old man said was a relic of feudalism, but now that I think about it, it's quite right." On the surface, these words sound like connotations and pleasures, but after learning the truth that Sun Yumei created a white, rich, and beautiful character and forced her to squeeze into another circle with her rich second-generation boyfriend, I only felt that this sounds really ironic. I didn't know how to get back to her for a while. The atmosphere in the dormitory was a little weird, but a call from Sun Yumei broke the atmosphere. This special ringtone was set by Sun Yumei, who turned on the show love mode for her dear exclusive ringtones. Sun Yumei happily held up her mobile phone, her eyes full of pride, and said with a smile, I won't gossip with you, my dear is calling. Sun Yumei happily trotted out with her mobile phone in her hand. She closed the door of the dormitory and didn't walk far, and she could vaguely hear her cheerful and charming laughter like a silver bell in the dormitory. Baoziofen rolled his eyes after the laughter disappeared and pouted, "Bitch, what is she trying to do?" When Le shrugged, thinking of Sun Yumei's pointing at her relationship with Zhou Cao, she was inexplicably upset. After washing, the 4 people in the dormitory went to bed, and Sun Yumei, who went out to cook porridge on the phone for half an hour, trotted back, and began to rummage through the boxes with excitement. Cheng Hui was startled by her movement, sat up and looked at Sun Yumei, and said, "What are you doing at night?" Sun Yumei took out a pink mini dress from the closet and compared it to the mirror behind the dormitory door. Satisfied, she threw the dress on the bed, and stripped off her clothes in public, wearing only the underwear, and underwear began to change clothes, and he said while moving, "Shi Chong, you can treat me as if I didn't come back today. Lindsay I wants to take me to a party, and I won't be back tonight." Cheng Hui frowned, "Be careful, at night." There are some things that Cheng Hui is hard to say, but everyone knows it as an adult. Sun Yu waved her hand indifferently and said, "All right, it's okay, head of the dormitory." Cheng Hui kindly reminded, "There is a class at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, don't forget." Sun Yumei didn't care, "If you can't make it to 8 o'clock, you won't be named anyway." Cheng Hui was speechless, "Okay, don't forget to pack up this place before you leave." Sun Mimi was busy changing her clothes, makeup, and hair, and said perfunctorily, "I know." After tossing for more than half an hour, the dormitory was in chaos again. Sun Yumei is still busy drawing her eyeliner. The ringtone that Sun Yumei set for her boyfriend rang in the dormitory, and his boyfriend had already driven downstairs to call to urge her. In a panic, Sun Mimi still steadied herself with eyeliner, picked up her bag and ran out the door. "Run to the door and look at the clothes and bags that he took out and hadn't packed, then came back and put everything in the closet and locked it with a lock." Cheng Hui looked at the mess in the dormitory and reminded her, "Your packing box." Sun Yu said in a hurry, "Leave it for now and then clean up when I get back." After speaking, she rushed out of the dormitory like a gust of wind. Seeing the mess on the ground, Cheng Hui exclaimed, "Fuck." Baoziofen took off his earphones and glanced at it, even more black lines. Man Qingxian said leisurely at this time, "Suddenly I remember that I will have a health check tomorrow." 4 voices sounded at the same time, Gan. Ai Fei, who just came back from the library self-study, opened the door when he heard these 4 Gan sounds and was startled. He could not help but exit, closed the door and glanced at the house number to confirm that he had not gone wrong. "I couldn't help but wonder, I pushed the door and went in again, and I saw a mess all over the place." "What's the situation?" Ai Fei said. Cheng Hui pointed to the ground and said, "I will check the hygiene tomorrow, she probably won't come back tomorrow after she leaves." Ai Fei understood what she had done, and couldn't help but widen her eyes in shock, and said FK for a long time. "I can really be mad at her." The 5 people in the dormitory had to get up from the bed, and spent most of the day cleaning up the dormitory from beginning to end. There will be no time to clean up for the class at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Cheng Hui kicked the pile of with wrapping paper and boxes beside her feet and said, "What should I do? There is no place to put it in the dormitory, so I threw it at her in case he wants to make trouble again." Baoziofen said, "Don't throw it away, don't throw it away, it has to be kept for her. Tomorrow afternoon we'll have Lao Yang's class, she doesn't dare not come, she will definitely go back to the dormitory. When the time comes, I will give her this pile of to review again, she must clean up for me honestly, leave a hair, and I will put it in her mouth." Man Qingxian nodded, second. When Le thought about Sun Yumei's connotation and disgusted her last night, so she didn't get angry, and said, "Then put it under the bed, and then take it out for her after checking the hygiene." Cheng Hui nodded, yes. Several people looked at each other and smiled sinisterly. What to do, they are such vicious women. Lao Yang's class in the afternoon. Lao Yang is notoriously difficult to take, he must call his name before class, 1 point will be deducted at the end of the class, 2 times he will not have his usual grades, and 3 times he will be retaken directly. Unfortunately, Sun Yumei has already escaped from Lao Yang's class once again. If she skips class again this time, she will hardly pass the grade after losing her usual grades. Sun Yumei does not dare to be too indulgent. Sure enough, in the afternoon, as Bao Xiaofan said, Sun Yumei appeared in the dormitory. Perhaps it was because she played too late last night, the dark circles on Sun Yumei's face were a little heavy, and she was a little lackluster. As soon as Sun Yumei pushed the dormitory away, she was stunned when she saw the mess. For a moment, she remembered that this was the packaging bag she left yesterday, but then she remembered something was wrong, and Sun Yumei said in surprise. Isn't it checked for hygiene this morning? Several people in the dormitory sneered when she heard the words. It turned out that she knew that she had to check the hygiene, and it would be fine. I'm pissed. Cheng Hui nodded coldly, yes, the inspection is over. Sun Yumei pointed to the mess, so do we get 0 points? The department attaches great importance to the hygiene performance. If it is 0 points, I am afraid that I will be invited by the counselor to talk. Bao Xiaofan sneered, that's not true, our health check this time is 100%. Sun Yumei looked at the things on the ground again and seemed to want an answer. When Le said, we don't really like to touch your things. After all, these things are so expensive, right? We don't dare to throw them away for you, in case you have something that we give to you. Throw it away, it's not very good, so I brought it back to you as it is, and you can look carefully to see if there is anything valuable. When Le looked sincere and innocent, as if she was really thinking about Sun Yumei, but the indifference in her eyes was very ironic. Sun Yumei looked at Wen Le, her face a little embarrassed. She seemed to realize that this was probably Wen Li's revenge for her connotation last night. Sun Yumei was holding the bag tightly, she really hated this girl. Cheng Hui also added at this time, hurry up and look for other valuables, hurry up and clean up, the dormitory looks quite messy. Sun Yumei gritted her teeth and was reluctant to pick up the trash on the ground. Sun Mimi held her breath, and the wrapping paper squeaked in her hands. After cleaning up all the wrapping paper, she muttered, okay. Cheng Hui took a distracted look from the phone when she heard the words, and said, what is this, please clean it up with a broom. The dormitory returned to a clean and tidy appearance, and the mood of several people in the dormitory also improved, only Sun Yumei was in a bad mood. Sun Yumei walked past Man Qingxian, Man Qingxian wrinkled her nose, and said, you have been drinking? Your body smells a little heavy. Sun Yumei heard the words and pulled her sleeves to smell it, it was a little heavy, I didn't drink much, I accidentally spilled it yesterday. I'll go wash it. Sun Mimi went to the closet to look for a change of clothes, but suddenly froze when she opened the closet. The key to her wardrobe is missing. Sun Yumei slapped the cabinet door twice, her voice so aggrieved that she cried, what are you doing? You bully me no matter what. Others in the dorm? After speaking, ignoring the confused eyes of other people in the dormitory, he kicked the cupboard door, turned and ran out of the dormitory door was slammed into the sky. Others in the dorm. Bao Xiaofan widened his eyes in shock, threw his phone on the bed, got up, put on his shoes and got out of bed while scolding, he was about to chase him out, I'm just sloppy, what does she mean? Shame on the face, right? I blame others for bullying her for the key I lost. I'm sorry. If she doesn't speak clearly today, she won't even want to enter this door. Cheng Hui and Wen Le hurried to catch up, and even dragged Bao Xiaofan back. Bao Xiaofan's eyes were red with anger, what is it, who bullies who? She is the only one people bullied us in a dormitory and even felt wronged. Wen Le hugged Bao Xiaofan's waist, crossed his arms from his armpits and reached out to pat Bao Xiaofan's chest, and said in a warm voice, "I'm not angry, we're not angry." Cheng Hui spat, "It's all right, what can you do when you catch up? Scold her or fight. She's shameless, so can you not?" Bao Xiaofan took a deep breath and let it out slowly, "Oh my temper." Man Qingxian looked back and said, "But, she doesn't seem to have the book, so she won't go to the afternoon class again, right? Let her." Lao Yang took the call in class in the afternoon, and Sun Yumei was not there. Lao Yang closed the roll call. If the roll call fails twice, there will be no usual grades this semester. Lao Yang glanced over the students, and tapped twice on the cover of the roll call with the pen in his hand. "Also, I want to talk to your instructor." Suddenly there was a rustling discussion in class, and several people in the dormitory couldn't help but glance at each other, but they didn't know what to say. They have no ill will towards Sun Yumei. Sun Yumei is just a little irritated at times, but in the final analysis it is only some small contradictions. It is impossible for people to get along without contradictions. The process of running in with each other is not perfect. There is no need to speak out against each other and release malice. The superficial harmony is the hypocrisy of adults and a way for adults to release kindness to the world. After hesitating for a moment, Cheng Hui still took out her mobile phone and sent a message to Sun Yumei. "The teacher has named you, and your usual grades will be deducted, and you have to contact the instructor. Do you want to ask the instructor for a leave in advance?" The message was sent, but no reply was received. Cheng Hui and a few roommates looked at each other and shook their heads. After class, Wen Le received a call from the Academy Student Union. "Wen Le, the host you wrote, the teacher has read it and said it's great. I'll send you the list of guests who are sure to attend the party later, you can add it. You haven't get to know the male host, I'll send you his WeChat business card, and you can make an appointment with him to check the manuscript." A week ago, the guide found Wen Le and said that this year's freshman entrance ceremony hoped Wen Le could take the stage as the hostess. Wen Le was stunned when she heard the words. In fact, she had never learned to host, and as far as she knew, there were many people who were good at hosting and competing for this opportunity. Wen Le knew what kind of right and wrong she would get if she took on this task like this, but she was never afraid of it. She was determined to take over even the moment the guide opened her mouth. As an ambitious girl like her, she couldn't let go of any chance to get it. Wen Le actually knew the reasons that were not spoken, and everyone knew it. Because she has a good image, because she is more famous, because she can bring better publicity to the hospital. These are known. As a favored beneficiary, Wen Le could not be unaware that this was somewhat unfair to other competitors. Wen Le didn't want to protect the rights and interests of other competitors, she just wanted to appease her little conscience, so Wen Le asked why it was her. The instructor only said one sentence, "Because you got the first grade." So Wen Le accepted. On campus, this reason seems invincible. As she spurned her hypocrisy, Wen Le thought that perhaps her stage performance was not comparable to someone more experienced, but her hosting draft should convince them. Thinking back from a week ago, Wen Le said, "Okay senior." The other side thought for a while, and then said, "Then there is the issue of clothing, you may need to pick it up yourself, I will send you the location, you can pick it up and bring it back tomorrow, pay for it yourself first the money, the documents will be sent to me, and the hospital will reimburse you, the day after tomorrow you need to pay it back by yourself." Wen Le just hung up the phone when she saw Cheng Hui coming and said, "I'm going to pick up clothes tomorrow, are you free? Come with me." Cheng Hui said, "Tomorrow there will be no classes for 7 or 8 classes." "I'm fine, okay, I'll accompany you." "By the way, Gang Sun Yu has sent me a message," Cheng Hui said. The message she sent to her when she was just in class, this time the message was returned after 2 classes had passed. Wen Le said, "What did she say?" "She said whatever, just as she doesn't want to take Lao Yang's class, she simply won't go this year and will retake it next year." Wen Le was silent for a long time, then gave a thumbs up. She's been pretty crazy recently. Cheng Hui whispered, she hangs out with her boyfriend all day, doesn't know where to go, doesn't go to class, and is completely out of school. I'm a little scared, I'm afraid something will happen to her. Sun Yumei's boyfriend was bought into a pheasant school by his family, but he didn't go to class. He drove the car all day and played with a group of friends all over the world. Cheng Hui felt a little flustered. It may be that we are too responsible, and we are not expecting her to be bad, but we think she is quite scary. But she doesn't like to listen to her. When we are jealous of her and say bad things, but we can't just watch her. I always feel that her boyfriend is unreliable. She won't go back to the dormitory to sleep tonight. When Ellie heard the words and was silent for a moment, no one can tell before this kind of thing happens. If she doesn't come back tomorrow, she will contact the guide. It's time to contact the instructor, Cheng Hui said, a little bit irritable, but she's going to blame us for complaining when she comes back. Gan. It's so worrying, you shouldn't care about her. When Ellie heard this and laughed out loud, Cheng Hui was so good among girls for no reason. When Ellie smiled and kissed Cheng Hui on the face, our dormitory is really kind, ha 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 ha. Cheng Hui rubbed her face violently, and sure enough, she saw a touch of red on her finger. She couldn't help being irritable. She reached out and hit Wen Li's arm. I'm so annoying. You know, what a lipstick. When Ellie smiled and avoided, the phone suddenly dinged, and the text message came. When Ellie took out and took a look, with some doubts in her eyes. Cheng Hui stepped forward. What? When Ellie said, the courier has arrived, but I haven't bought it recently. I was thinking about where the courier came from when the phone rang again. It was Aunt Yu. As soon as when Ellie saw the phone, she knew who it was, gave Cheng Hui a gesture, and answered the phone. Hello, Auntie. Aunt Yu's voice came from the receiver. Leal, have you received the courier sent by Auntie? It really was Aunt Yu. When Ellie said, I received it. How much do you weigh today? When Ellie said, 90.25. Aunt Yu said, Lele's weight control has been very good. Have you exercised recently? When Ellie said, no, there are a lot of things to do at the beginning of school, and I have no time. Auntie Yu said, then you must remember to exercise on time when you are done with this period. You still need to exercise to look good. Auntie still recommends that you sign up for a dance class or a yoga class. I won't be able to hold on just because I'm bored by myself. When Ellie said, okay, Auntie, if there are few classes this semester, I will sign up for a class. Aunt Yu said again, what flavor do you like to eat recently? When Ellie said, recently, there are a lot of parties, and I eat a lot of barbecue and the like, and some have strong flavors. Are there any pimples on your face? You should use the things your aunt sent you, take good care of your skin, and eat less ingredients. When Ellie hung up the phone, Cheng Hui said, is it something your aunt sent you? When Ellie nodded, Cheng Hui said, oh, I want to have such an aunt too. Although when Ellie grew up in the mountains, she has never been short of beautiful dresses since she was a child. Aunt Yu used to be Wen Li's favorite aunt in childhood, because every time Aunt Yu came, she would bring him all kinds of beautiful dresses. When she was a child, Wen Li never thought about why Aunt Yu would bring her a beautiful dress every time. Later, when she got older, Wen Li learned from the housekeeper grandpa that Aunt Yu was their home tailor. It was also at that time that Wen Li knew that the housekeeper was the same job as a tailor. Before that, she always thought that the housekeeper's grandfather was named Guanmingjia. When she grew up, Wen Li came into contact with more people and found out that their family was special. Although their family lives in a big house, they live in the mountains. Although they have housekeepers, tailors, and cooks, they seem to be family members living together, and their family seems to have no money to pay their salaries. So when they were older, Wen Li wanted to understand that their family was actually a group of stubborn people living in the mountains, indulging in the glamorous life of the old society, like a declining noble. The shabby, but face-saving poor man who maintains the past glamorous lifestyle. Wen Le wanted to understand, but she became more and more sad. In the end, it was all the fault of poverty. This idea did not make Wen Le feel inferior, but instead made Wen Le evolve into an ambitious and self-motivated fighter. She's probably a freak. Wen Le and Cheng Hui moved a large box back to the dormitory, and the next time was the happiest time to unpack the courier. Clothes, perfumes, cosmetics, and even bags and shoes are all packed in such a box, which shows how big the box will be. The clothes are all in Wen Le's style. Cheng Hui shook off a long skirt. It was a fiery red long skirt. The fabric was slightly stiffer, the shoulder line and waistline where the outline is and charming, and the bottom of the long skirt is layered on top of each other, blooming like a rose. With such a skirt, even a tough guy like Cheng Hui can't help but exclaim, "Wow! Liel, your aunt has such a vision. It's absolutely amazing, my god, it's so beautiful. If you go out wearing this dress, you're afraid to hire a pickup bodyguard. I'm afraid the boys in our school will go crazy." Wen Le's eyes were also attracted by the skirt, and muttered, "Indeed, it's so beautiful. But isn't it suitable for school wear?" Wen Le said. Cheng Hui said, "You can wear it on a date. When you find someone you like, you will wear this dress to find her, keep her safe and bow down under your red dress and sing Conquest the next moment, ha ha ha." Wen Le also laughed. At this moment, the dormitory door was pushed open, and the two turned around, only to see Sun Yumei walking in. Sun Mimi's eyes were immediately attracted to the red dress in Cheng Hui's hand, and then fell on the big box that Wen Le brought back, with a flash of contempt in her eyes. Sun Mimi Shiran walked to the desk, put something in her bag, and said, "Come back and get something, you guys continue. Speak and leave." Sun Mimi closed the dormitory door and rolled her eyes, thinking of Wen Le's large solid-color cardboard box without a logo. She sneered in disdain, and whispered, "Cheap. Wen Le has moved back to a box like this every once in a while since she went to college. The box is full of clothes and bags. Her clothes are beautiful, but which store and brand of Sun Yumei came out?" Wen Le also said that it is not a brand of goods. And those clothes and bags did not have the brand logo. Sun Yumei also thinks of Wen Le's background. The poor ghosts from the mountains, how can they get such good clothes with money? I'm afraid they were donated by others or bought from the second-hand market. Tisk tisk, how does this poor person know? This person, if the clothes are cheap, they will be cheap. Looking at the tens of thousands of bags in her hand, Sun Yumei smiled and walked away with satisfaction. "Do you go to the library at night?" Cheng Hui asked. Wen Le glanced at the time and shook her head. "No, I have to find the male host to match the manuscript. You forgot, we have to rehearse tomorrow afternoon." "Ah, yes, the day after tomorrow is the opening ceremony for freshmen," Man Qingxian propped up his chin and said while fiddling with his mobile phone. "Other dormitories have been preparing programs for the past few days, right? Is there nothing in our dormitory?" Bao Xiaofan took a sip of yogurt and said, "There is a host in our dormitory, why not?" Man Qingxian said, "But because of this host position, someone went to find the guide a few days ago." Cheng Hui said, "It's not enough to make trouble online, do you want to go to the teacher to make trouble?" The instructor didn't agree, they went to the department head again. The head of the department said it was the decision of the school, and they were so angry that they scolded them on the internet. Man Qingxian said, "This matter it's not over yet, I can think of the way they pointed after Wen Le hosted it." Wen Le was packing things in her bag. Wen Yan smiled and said, "I expected it a long time ago, I just said it, anyway, if I get this opportunity, I won't lose a piece of meat if I say a few words." "Yes, let them speak." Bao Xiaofan was curious and said, "Hey, who is the male host? Is it also the director's appointment?" Wen Le said, "The male host is Li Siyang from the 3rd class." I don't know how he was selected. I know that Li Suyang, he is quite handsome, but, Man Qingxian said, it's better to be taller. Bao Xiaofan snorted lightly, every time I see him, I think he looks like a chicken with no hair. Ha 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 ha, what do you describe as a chicken without long hair? Cheng Hui laughed. That's right, that's how he is, that's how his neck is, Bao Xiaofan said while stretching his neck to learn. Manching whirling not, what, I can't bear to look directly, are you annoying, you ruined another handsome guy. I hate you. The dormitory burst into laughter again. Cheng Hui saw that when Le was almost packed and said, what time will you be back, bring the dormitory key. Around 8 o'clock, not to mention I forgot, when Le took out the key from the drawer and heard a crisp sound. Man Qingxian said casually, when Le, why do you have such a pile of keys, like a renter? As he spoke, he laughed. When Le also laughed and glanced at the key, as if she didn't quite understand, and said, yeah, it's quite heavy. When my roommate said this, when Le was very curious what the host looked like. After seeing the real person, when Le knew why Bao Xiaofan said that. Li Suyang is handsome and fair, with a thin body and not very tall, but he should be around 1 to 75. The boy who was pampered and cared for in every possible way, his slender chin was slightly raised, and he carried a group of almost childish arrogance, but he looked a bit like a chicken with yellow fluff but his neck stretched. When Le saw the boy's first glance, he almost burst into laughter when he thought of Bao Xiaofan's description. He managed to hold back his laughter and maintain his image, but he couldn't help thinking of Zhou Cao. When Le thought it was a bit strange, obviously a person of the same age, Zhou Cao had a maturity that made it easy to ignore his age, and the person in front of him, in Wen Li's view, was some naive younger brother. Strange. When the roommate returned to the dormitory in the evening, when Le had already washed up and was lying on the bed reading a book. They were a little excited, and as soon as they closed the dormitory door, they started screaming, ah, Liel. Guess who we saw in the library? When Le turned his eyes from the book to Man Qingxuan's face, who? Man Qing said, weekly test. When Le frowned inexplicably, so what? Bao Xiaofan was excited, I'm stupid. He is really handsome. Super handsome. Man Qing said, you absolutely don't know what happened. The Department of Foreign Languages College next door and her classmates are also taking self-study classes in the library, and they also saw the weekly test. So I asked my classmates to go up and ask for a WeChat account for the weekly test. Man Qingxian and Bao Xiaofan are two actors, one pretends to be a weekly test and the other pretends to be a flower. Man Qingxian pointed to Cheng Hui in the distance, and said, handsome guy, I can help my classmates get a WeChat. Bao Xiaofan put his index finger on his lips when Man Qingxian said the word WeChat. Man Qingxian pretended to be stunned, staring at Bao Xiaofan, as if he had forgotten what to say, while Bao Xiaofan turned and left with a cold face. The two of them started screaming frantically again, ah. I'm going to die. He put his finger on his lips like this, I'm going, sexy. Cheng Hui also sighed, this man is absolutely amazing. Man Qingxian echoed, absolutely. Bao Xiaofan, absolutely. Man Qingxian said with high fighting spirit, when Le. Take him down. Cheng Hui also instigated, yes. With your beauty, go up and seduce him. Let him kneel down and sing conquest. You must not be cheap other goblins. When Le didn't know what to think, scolded a dog man in his heart, turned his back to his roommate slowly, ugly refused. You poor old woman. There were no classes for 7 or 8 classes in the afternoon of the next day. When Le took Cheng Hui to find the address sent by her senior to rent a dress for hosting the party. But from the name, the shop that rents dresses is definitely not as broken and biased as it actually shows. When Le and Cheng Hui stood downstairs in the shop, looking at the dilapidated building, silent. After a long time, Cheng Hui said, "Liel, are you sure this is the place?" Wen Le mechanically nodded and said, "According to the address given by senior sister, it's right here." Cheng Hui took a deep breath and said, "This can be used to shoot horror movies at night. Fortunately, you didn't come alone." Wen Le took Cheng Hui's hand, "Let's go, warrior." The small store has genre hangers, all of which are all kinds of earthy and vulgar dresses. Wen Le and Cheng Hui looked at the dress, the more they looked, the more powerless they felt. Really ugly. The last two people picked out 3 of the 110 dresses that could still be seen. A modest black dress with a hip wrap, a long blue dress with broken diamonds, and finally a pink silk dress. Cheng Hui said, "You wear these 3 very well, which one do you choose?" Wen Le looked at these 3 dresses, and for some reason, the words of her aunt sounded in her mind. At that time, when she and aunt mentioned that she was going to host the freshmen's opening party, the aunt said, "Liel has white skin, wearing a light-colored dress looks best, white and pink, all look good." Wen Le pointed at the pink long dress and said, "Just this one." When Le went to pay, the boss gave an order. Cheng Hui took it over and took a closer look, 120 yuan, really worth every penny. Back when the two of them took the subway back to school, they were planning what to eat for the evening, but when Le received a call at this moment. When Le looked at her father. When Le answered the phone with some doubts, "Hey Dad." Cheng Hui saw When Le and hung up the phone, and said, "What?" When Le said, "My father came to the capital and said that he happened to see me and wanted to take me to dinner." Cheng Hui glanced at the time, and it was less than 5 o'clock. "Do you have a rehearsal at 7 o'clock? It should be in a hurry to come back after dinner, don't forget. I will bring you the clothes directly. Go back, you can go directly, let's make an appointment next time." According to the address given by her father, When Le was a high-end Western restaurant in the commercial building. When Le was a little puzzled, why did her father choose this place, but he didn't think much about it and looked down at his clothes, a black dress and white high heels. "Although I came out in a hurry today, it is not rude." When Le walked into the box reserved by her father, and saw Tian Qi sitting at the dining table in a suit and leather shoes. The man in his 50s looked like he was only in his 30s or 40s because of the proper maintenance, and he was meticulously groomed. The gold wire glasses on his hair and the bridge of his nose make him look like a business elite. So the appearance is always deceptive. When Le sighed. "Dad." When Tiankai looked up at his daughter, "Liel, come on." When Tiankai asked about Wen Li's daily life during the meal. He was always busy with his career and gave his only daughter to her grandparents. He was always a little guilty for not being enough company with this daughter. When Le picked up some school things, which were all trivial things, but when Tiankai listened very seriously. Dessert was served, the waiter stepped back, the box door was closed again. When Le said again, "Dad, why did you come to the capital?" When Tiankai said, "I've been in Beijing for a business trip these few days, and I happen to be near here, so I want to see you." "How many days is Dad staying in Beijing?" When Tiankai said, "About 3 days, after that I will be a little busy, I'm afraid I won't be able to accompany you on your birthday." After mentioning this, when Le remembered that her birthday was coming soon, she smiled and said, "I'll forget if Dad doesn't say anything." When Tiankai said, "Although there is no way to accompany you on your birthday, but I brought you a birthday present." When Tiankai picked up a paper bag and handed it to Wen Le, "Auntie, you told me a few days ago that you would be the host of your college's freshman opening ceremony tomorrow, right?" Wen Le took the bag and nodded. When Tiankai said, "Are you ready for the party dress?" When Le said, "I just went to rent a pink dress." When Tiankai said, "Exactly, you should be able to use this gift." When Le was a little curious when she heard the words, and took the black box out of the paper bag. "What is this?" When Le opened the box and looked at the contents of the box, Her eyes widened, so beautiful. I saw a set of jewelry lying quietly in the box, glittering charmingly under the light of the box. This is a set of jewelry mainly made of pink morganite. The necklace is decorated with a drop-shaped pink morganite with a full 30 carats, and 2 earrings. A ring it is mainly made of 3 10-carat pink morganites. The crystal clear pink morganites are inlaid and designed into flower-shaped rings and earrings. They are guarded by countless broken diamonds, which is simply beautiful. There is no female voice who will not be moved by such beauty. Wen Le was captured almost instantly. Wen Le has seen a lot of jewelry since she was a child. She grew up with her grandmother. Grandma is a very particular and elegant old lady. She has 3 whole suitcases of jewelry. For some years, Wen Le thought that it was probably the most valuable thing in their family. However, no matter how much money it is worth, it can't improve their family's life. Their family still can't afford a color TV or a car. Wen Le thought that her grandmother should love these jewels very much. Of sorrow, while being bewitched by jewels. Now, will she have her own jewelry too? When Tiankai saw that his daughter liked the gift he gave very much, and he was in a good mood, he said, "Your grandma called me a few days ago to complain to me, saying that the girl has grown up and should be more herself. How can you not have a decent set of jewelry? Dad just remembered that Dad was negligent. Your grandmother has been accumulating for you since you made a sound, but those are not suitable for daily wear, so Dad wanted to find someone. I'll order you something that you can wear at the moment. This set was designed by your Aunt Yu, who asked someone to help you design it. Do you like it?" Wen Li's eyes were still on the jewelry, and she nodded, but she was thinking about the price of the jewelry. If the jewelry on the jewelry was real, Wen Le had the final say at the price. He gasped and couldn't help but blurted out, "Dad, did you take Grandma's jewelry? Where did our family get the money to buy this jewelry?" Hearing Tiankai's words, his expression was indescribable. His daughter has been excellent since she was a child, which makes him very proud. Others will always praise Wenel for being smart, but when Tiankai sometimes thinks that his daughter is not so smart, even in his seems a little stupid. He didn't know why his daughter felt that their family was poor and that she was a left-behind child in the mountains. Maybe it has something to do with her grandfather's education. But after discovering that such a misunderstanding would stimulate Wen Li's wildness and fighting spirit, he did not try to stop it deliberately. Under such a misunderstanding, Wen Le was indeed very motivated and hard-working, and even without the supervision and guidance of his family, he was admitted to the top 1A university in the country. When Tiankai doesn't plan to tell his daughter the truth now, just let this idiot find out the truth by himself. So when Tiankai smiled and said, "No, it's your grandma's life, how could it be? These are all artificial crystals, worthless, not as expensive as you think." Wen Le was relieved to hear the words and said, "That's good, thank you Dad, I like it very much." He in Wen Tiankai's heart, when will my stupid daughter wake up? Wen Tiankai suddenly remembered something and asked, "Liel, didn't you lose the 2 keys that your grandfather and father gave you when you were in college?" "The key?" Wen Le was stunned, took the key out of the bag and said, "Here, it's not lost." Wen Tiankai said, "That's good, don't drop it." Wen Le put away the key, "Don't worry, it won't fall." Wen Tiankai sighed in his heart, the stupid daughter didn't even know why he gave the key. Wen Tiankai felt helpless, and brought the topic back to the birthday gift, saying, "This set of jewelry is just right for your dress. Tomorrow you bring this set of jewelry to the stage, it must be the most beautiful in the audience, princess." Wen Le hesitated a bit, "But, Dad, although this gift is beautiful, it's a little too public. I'm just a host, not the protagonist of the party." Wen Le looked at her father, but couldn't bear to refuse, and this set of jewelry was really beautiful, she said, "Well, I'll wear earrings and rings." Wen Tiankai nodded, "Yes, Liel is right. Her daughter is so beautiful and kind. Let Dad take it away."